The truth about the job market. It's no secret that the job market is more volatile and unpredictable than ever these days. Depending on where you live, the unemployment rates can fluctuate from a reasonable 7% to as high as 25%, and who knows exactly how high they could go in the near future. Finding a job is almost impossible. Companies everywhere are cutting costs and downsizing like there's no tomorrow. For many companies, there really is no tomorrow. Even the fail-proof companies are seeing bankruptcies and buyouts more often than ever in the past 100 years. If you don't already have a steady, stable job with a well-established company, then you definitely picked the wrong decade to be unemployed in. Even if you have a stable job, there's really no telling if it will be there next month or even next week. So what's the solution? What can you do? You can't just magically change the economy and make the job market better. You probably won't get a lot done by writing a letter to your senator either. Believe it or not, there is a solution, and it requires a lot of work and dedication, but it's a lot better than being unemployed. Create your own job. I know that sounds a little funny when you just look at it like that, but it's the truth. There are no jobs out there, and the few that are open are only going to highly qualified people with years of experience. So unless you fit that category, you have to create your own job. Specifically, I'm talking about freelancing. People have been doing freelancing for thousands of years. Even in ancient Rome, the army hired mercenaries to go into battle when there weren't enough soldiers. Mercenaries were freelance warriors. They weren't employed full-time by a particular nation's army, they just worked for whoever was willing to pay the most. Hopefully, you don't have to do any paid fighting anytime soon, but the spirit of the mercenary and the idea of contract work carries on thousands of years later in the form of freelancing. By becoming your own boss and establishing contract relationships, you open up a world of money-making possibilities while completely abandoning all of the negative aspects that come with a typical 9-to-5 job. In this book, we're going to explore the many options you have should you choose to become a freelancer. We're going to talk about freelance work in a way that allows you to learn the essential techniques, regardless of what field you choose to freelance in, be it business, graphic design, or even housekeeping. Why do freelance? So, what's so great about freelance work exactly? Well, let me start out by giving you an example of the type of person freelancing is not good for. If the following paragraph describes your life, then you can stop reading this and just go back to what you were doing. Do you enjoy getting up early every single morning and wading through miles of traffic to get to work? Do you find it exciting seeing the exact same people every single day, 5 to 6 days a week, with absolutely no variety or change? Are you your boss's best friend? Do you look forward to answering to your boss and having to meet his or her deadlines constantly? Do you enjoy never seeing your family members during the day or always having to miss out on events like school recitals and soccer games? Is it fun to make poverty-level wages and live paycheck to paycheck so that you pretty much have no variety in your life because any big expense could make your bills come crashing down on you? If you answered yes to all of those questions, then, as I said, stop reading and go back to your wonderful life. Freelance work probably isn't for you. If you did freelance work, you'd be your own boss. You'd be taking your career into your own hands and having complete control over your life. You can just throw this book away or delete it from your hard drive. Now, if you didn't answer yes to all of those questions, you might be the type of person who could have a lucrative career freelancing. Get comfortable, grab a pen and a pad of paper so you can take some notes and get ready to explore one of the most rewarding and lucrative ways of making a living in the 21st century. Does freelancing mean you will get rich overnight? No, it takes work and dedication. There are a number of obstacles that you will have to overcome, but the rewards will be substantial if you're willing to put in the time and effort. The possibilities are endless. There are opportunities for any person to break into the lucrative career of freelancing. All you need is diligence, patience, and tenacity to pursue it and make it happen. This book will show you how. On the other hand, if you are the person that was described at the beginning of the chapter, get that beverage and curl up with the latest novel by your favourite author. It might be enjoyable reading, and that is fine. Just remember, unless you are doing that for a living, you won't be making a dime. Be your own boss. Freelancing allows you to be your own boss. This means you make your own hours. Making your own hours does not mean loafing around all day. It means having the self-discipline to set aside a certain amount of hours that you work each day. But as the boss, you get to decide what those hours are. That way you can pick up the kids from school, have lunch with the spouse, go to the gym during the day when it's not so crowded, and never have to make that horrible rush hour commute. Wear what you want. Does your current job have a dress code? How does sitting in your pyjamas all day sound? What about just spending the day wearing your favourite pair of worn-out jeans and that t-shirt from that unforgettable 1980s rock concert? If you are an independent agent like a freelancer, then you decide the dress code. Set your own price. Being a freelancer means that you get to set your own prices for what your time is worth. You get to determine your own prices based on your costs and your time. You don't have to pay yourself a minimum amount or charge a certain amount. You have total control over what kind of money you can make. Instead of waiting years to get a raise, you can adjust your own prices. As you become more proficient and widen your client base, you can double and triple your earnings as you see fit. Live wherever you want. Have you ever considered living somewhere else but your job and family obligations keep you stuck in the same place? Freelancing gives you the freedom to take your family, if that applies to you or just yourself, and live wherever you want. As long as you have a phone, a computer, and a way to receive mail, you can live at the South Pole or Hawaii and still have a lucrative freelancing career. Your home is your office. You can be sitting in a coffee shop and enjoying a scone with a mocha latte at the same time you're making millions of dollars. Realistic expectations. A lot of people live by two very popular old sayings. Nothing in life is free, and if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. In the case of freelancing, the price is minimal. As you will see in future chapters, you will need some general items such as a computer, a printer, and maybe a fax and scanner. After you have the materials needed to be a freelancer, your greatest cost will be your time and effort. How much are you worth? The best part is that you get to decide what your time and effort are worth. As far as the rule, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, here is something to consider. You should not quit your day job immediately and hope to make $10,000 next month. Instead, start slow and work your way to making the money you want. If you are making the equivalent of your full-time job and you have too much freelance work to do, then decide to freelance full-time and quit your day job. If you work hard, this process can happen rather quickly, so don't be discouraged. The jobs are real. The money is real. The only investment is the amount of time you are willing to invest. The market for freelancers is growing in leaps and bounds. The future markets are projected to continue to grow at the same rapid rate. This means more fantastic freelance opportunities and greater potential income. Companies love working with freelancers because they're a lot more convenient and often a lot less expensive than hiring traditional employees. When a company hires a freelancer, the freelancer worries about the materials and methods in completing the project. The company or individual only has to be concerned with communicating their needs to the contractor, another word for freelancer, and approving the final results. Freelancers don't have to be hired out from temp agencies, given benefits for meeting work hour requirements or any other formalities that employees require. Because of this, and thanks to the trend of downsizing and cutting employees, freelancing is becoming more active and profitable than ever. Let's do a brief overview of the pros and cons to give you a clear image of what you can expect when getting into freelancing. The pros. Be your own boss. Set your own hours. Never get fired. You only have to look for new clients. Work when you want and how you want. No limits. Work thousands of miles away. No distance barriers. Spend more time with your family and friends. Potentially make a lot more money than a 9-to-5 job. Economy affects job availability differently. Usually a poor economy increases freelance work rather than decreases it. The cons. No work is guaranteed. You're always looking for clients. Profits will be slow until you build up your business. In the US, you will have to pay more taxes. You must be skilled or a professional. There's no freelance hamburger flipping. While there are definitely some caveats to be had about freelancing, you can see that there are more pros than cons, and honestly, the pros outweigh the cons, for most people anyway. The versatility of freelance jobs makes them a powerful choice for anyone who's had trouble holding down a steady job with their local economy. Who freelance works for? If you're the type of person who likes to have a different thing to do every day and loves variety, then freelancing will probably work well for you. Anyone who is sociable and can easily communicate with other people will excel at freelance work. Sometimes the hardest part is convincing a client to bid on you for a job, or just speaking with them about the semantics of a particular job. People who are skilled but can't seem to find work that's stable are prime candidates for freelance work. It allows them to stay on top of their field without having to look for committed full-time work. Who freelance doesn't work for? As I've stated previously, freelancing is not for everyone. If you're the type of person who loves to do the exact same thing every day, then freelancing is probably not for you. Freelancing means you're dealing with many different clients who all have very different goals. If you're the type of person who keeps to a tight schedule and plans out the entire day the night before, then freelance work may be too unpredictable for you. You might consider picking one day of the week to work on small freelance projects so you can supplement your existing income without throwing your schedule off balance. This problem can be drastically reduced if you develop a faithful client base that has consistent needs. How do I get started? A lot of people are apprehensive about starting a freelance career. There are 1,000 questions to ask because it's so incredibly different from having a traditional job. The first thing to do is to establish the difference between working freelance and owning your own business. When you do freelance work, you essentially are your own business. You have to pay taxes differently, and you have to take care of the portion that would normally be covered by the company. That being said, there's a clear difference between being a freelancer and a business owner. Owning your own business means that you have an establishment or work from your home, and you do business with clients. So far, it's the same as freelancing. The difference is that businesses usually require a business license and special tax status. Aside from that, as a business, you'll generally be the type of person who hires employees to get work done. The key difference is that if you own a business, you usually sell a product or offer a standardized service, and there are rarely contracts involved beyond the standard warranties and terms of service, etc. As a freelancer, you are merely completing a service for a client and do contracts on a per-client basis. Every situation is different. It's a fine line, but the point I'm trying to make is that freelance work is less complicated, less expensive, and usually less work than owning your own business. As long as you set up an easy way to do your taxes, usually quarterly, you pretty much just have to get clients, do work, and receive payment. Every country, state, and territory is different, but in general, you don't require a special license to become a freelancer. Who makes the money? You might be wondering just who exactly makes all the money when it comes to freelancing. The best part of freelancing is that there is a niche for almost every skill. As long as you are proficient in a particular skill, you have just as good a chance as anyone else of making a lot of money with freelance work. If you are good, the demands upon your skills will be greater than the supply you can produce. Don't worry if you're not 100% sure about what your path is going to be. Throughout the course of this book, we're going to assess what your strengths are and talk about how you can use them to their fullest for the best profit potential. Why is freelancing so lucrative? Well, as I said before, companies are outsourcing more and more work every year. It is much more cost-effective for a company to outsource work to a free agent than to pay and maintain one full-time employee. A company can find the right professional for a particular project rather than relying on a few employees who may not have the expertise needed to complete the project. The people who make the most money doing freelance work are the type of people who know how to market themselves. They develop relationships with a large client base and know how to expand their business and maintain a certain level of quality. Many freelancers become extremely wealthy. In the end, it all boils down to your client connections and your reputation. Who are these freelancers? How do they become rich? How do they find their clients? You're probably excited to get going and start learning all of these fantastic techniques right now. Not to worry, we'll be discussing all of these things and more in the coming chapters. The immediate answer is technology. The days of typewriters are gone. The days of waiting for a response from a client by postal service are gone. We live in a world of modern technology. Documents can be written, saved and transmitted over thousands of miles in just a few short seconds. Words can reach thousands of people instantly. There is email now. In fact, you can chat online with clients on a real-time basis. Information is easy to find, store and send. That is why you can live anywhere you like as a freelancer. You are not confined to any one geographical address, as long as some type of internet access is available. Another advantage of modern technology is the ability for freelancers and their clients to find one another. There are many websites where a client can post a job and a freelancer can instantly respond to it. Again, geographical distance is not an issue. A client can be in Japan and the freelancer can be in sunny Florida, and they can have a successful partnership agreement. Technology is the absolute answer to worldwide connections and limitless opportunity. Our ability to communicate with almost no restrictions allows a freelancer to connect with clients and complete projects from literally anywhere on the planet. Since your work is not necessarily localized, as it is with many businesses, you have limitless opportunities for wealth. What's my niche? In case you're not familiar with the term, a niche is a specific or distinct segment of a market. This could be a particular category of work or a target audience. Work-at-home mums, for instance, is a particular niche. There are people all over the world who market products towards mothers who make a living from home. Alternatively, there are millions of mums who work for themselves. Another word you could use is penchant. People often say, "I have a penchant for," when they're talking about a particular strength or affinity to something. So your penchant is the strength that you have to market, and your niche is the actual market you're going after. When it comes to freelance, there really are no limits. You can do work for any niche imaginable. In the world of computers and technology, the most common niches to work for are digitally based industries, where the distance between client and freelancer has no bearing and work can be submitted on the internet instead of in person. Here's a brief list of the most popular niches. Writing. This could include just about anything. Writing is one of the most popular niche markets for freelancers because companies everywhere need copy to be written, but more often than not, they don't really need so much that they can justify hiring a professional copywriter. The great thing about this market is that it's probably the most versatile one there is. As long as you are a competent writer, you can write about any subject imaginable. Voiceover work. This is another excellent niche. Like writing, this really requires no extra skills or knowledge beyond being able to read well. Even if you don't think you have a very good voice, you can become a successful voiceover artist. It's how you say the words that ultimately matters. Video and screen capture video. A lot of large companies do training courses on an annual or semi-annual basis. Especially if they're a computer-based company, they will need screen capture video to train their employees on how to use essential software. Since these types of projects come up so rarely, it's almost never necessary to hire an employee to make the videos, so this is a popular niche to get freelance work in. Research. Research is a lucrative freelancing option to get into, although it's arguably hard to find reputable companies to work for. Research is exactly what it sounds like. You get small projects where you simply have to research a topic and provide information on it. It's rarely needed as much as other niches like writing, but it is something to consider. Help desk management. This is a lot easier than it sounds. Millions of websites that sell products and services have what's called a help desk. It's basically an online ticket system for customers to submit their problems and issues and then hopefully get them resolved. Most of your activities will include answering emails, submitting refunds, and giving low-level support for products. For a large company, this is usually something that full or part-time employees are hired for, but sometimes when a company does a big launch, it will hire freelancers to deal with a significant influx of support requests after a product launch. Translation. If you know more than one language, then your job opportunities are vastly expanded. There are a myriad of free translation programs on the web, but most companies will want what's called a human translation. This is exactly what it sounds like, a translation done by a human and not software. The reason this method is preferred is because the translations are usually more accurate and use colloquialisms and idioms that only a native speaker would think to use. Your tasks will usually include translating books, websites, and manuals. Graphic design and art. Despite the very specific, very talent-based nature of this niche, it's one of the absolute most popular niches in regards to freelance work. Companies very rarely hire full-time or part-time graphic designers unless the company is involved with printing services, etc. Almost all companies employ freelance graphic designers whenever they need to design new graphics or update old graphics. This can be anything from billboards to website images. If you have a talent for designing and creating images with the computer, and even better if you have an art degree, you can make a substantial profit from freelancing in the graphic design field. Software development and programming. This is another very skill-based niche, but it's also very lucrative. Again, most companies that need this type of work don't need it on a day-to-day basis, so it's almost always hired out to freelancers. That means you'll have a much easier time of finding a job than some other niches with more competition. The other benefit of freelance programming is that oftentimes your clients will know absolutely nothing about programming. So if you're skilled but can't quite cut it in the professional realm of programming, you might still have a chance to build up your experience with freelance jobs. Finance and bookkeeping. You might be noticing a trend with the jobs I'm listing. The types of things freelancers do are generally things that simply aren't required year-round. Financing and accounting are things that people tend to do periodically, so they often hire a freelancer, since it's way more cost-effective than hiring an employee. The higher your education is, the better, but if you have experience with accounting, you can still do well in this field without specific training. That's just a tiny list of some of the most popular types of jobs, and even at that, it's hardly complete. The possibilities are really limitless. I could probably fill the rest of this entire book just with job descriptions. Instead, I'll give you a short list of some of the other types of jobs you might look into. Aside from the 8 I mentioned earlier, these are the most popular and highest paying freelance jobs. Animators, computer programmers, consultants, culinary jobs, editors, copy editors, interior designers, telemarketers, translators, tutors, web designers, etc. And there are many, many more where that came from. So, as you can see, as long as you're very good at something, there is a niche and a client base waiting for you to take their money. Have a plan. Anyone who ever had a prosperous and profitable career as a freelancer didn't just jump into it with their eyes closed. You definitely don't want to just quit your day job and try to freelance or drop everything you're doing for it. You need to have a long-term plan that you can slowly execute and eventually reap the profits from. You've already got a head start because you're reading this book. The next step is to do some extra research outside of this text in order to assess where your opportunities lie and how deep you can get into freelancing at this point. For instance, if you already have a job but simply aren't making enough money, you can try freelancing on your spare time to try and supplement your income. If you find that your freelance jobs are slowly increasing and beginning to pay more than your day job, you can consider quitting and asking for a part-time schedule and focusing on your freelance work. Any transition you make should be slow. Until you get established as a freelancer with a decent client base, it's just as volatile as the employment job market. The only difference is that finding new clients is a lot easier than finding new employers. The first bit of research you should do is with online freelancing services. Luckily for you, there are tons. Once you've used one or two of these services a while, you can eventually start running the whole show yourself. But these networks are a great place to get into freelancing because they do a lot of the work for you. After you've become an established freelancer with a client base, you can move past these websites and make slightly higher profits. These are my top picks for freelancing websites: allfreelance.com, aquent.com, elance.com, craigslist.org, vworker.com, ifreelance.com, odesk.com, and guru.com. Of these websites, I'm going to specifically talk about Odesk, Craigslist, Elance, Vworker, formerly Rent-A-Coder, and Guru. These are my 5 favourite websites to use, and they all have unique advantages that make each of them worth trying out. How these sites works varies pretty widely. Some sites, like Craigslist, are more so bulletin boards than networks. Other sites charge you a monthly or yearly fee, but most of them will offer a free service in addition to their paid service, or they'll take a percentage of your profits. Look around and see if your skills match with any of the jobs posted. Even if you don't see many jobs requiring your skills, don't give up. It could mean that your niche is in an untapped area. If so, congratulations. This means that you will have a lot less competition. Look for a variety of jobs that match your skills. When you find some, look at how much those jobs pay. The amounts will vary. As clients become more familiar with your work and you build trust and a reputation, you can begin to demand more money. Many sites require you to bid on projects. The stipulation is that you have to pay some sort of commission to the company who owns the site. Take some time and look at these sites. You may also use a search engine such as Google and use the keyword freelance. Or you may add some specific skills to narrow your search, such as freelance writing. Before we move on, I'm going to give you an overview of my top 3 websites so you can get an idea of how they work. These include Vworker, Elance, and Craigslist. Online freelance and subcontracting. The internet is quite possibly the most powerful communication tool on the planet right now. For millions of people, the internet has become a medium that allows for freelancing opportunities that were impossible just a few decades ago. Freelancing on the internet has become a dependable source of income for many people, especially for skilled professionals from countries where jobs are scarce and salaries are low by international standards. If I had to pinpoint the start of the e-lancing boom, I guess it would probably be sometime in the early 90s. Computers and even the internet had existed before then, but until the release of the major personal computer operating systems like Windows 95, marketing on the internet had not become ubiquitous. During this time in the US, software companies realized that they could save a lot of money by hiring overseas programmers who would work for less. These developers and programmers were well versed in web design, application and database development, as well as system administration. Studies have shown that 1 out of every 5 contracted websites, software development and graphic designs worldwide are the products of outsourcing to freelancers. Beyond software requirements, internet freelancing now involves services such as design, graphic design, logos, brochures, illustrations, etc., writing, advertising, copywriting, web content, creative writing and ghostwriting, business consulting, competitive analysis, marketing planning, accounting and bookkeeping, email management and direct marketing, legal services, administrative support, engineering, architecture, and a host of audio, video, and multimedia services and applications. Today, there are many online marketplaces where buyers and sellers of such services meet and do business. These websites provide a forum where buyers can post their job requirements and qualified coders can submit proposals for these jobs. Based on these proposals, the buyer chooses who they believe to be the most qualified for the job and awards that job to them. Once the selected coder completes the job, the buyer sends payment to the online marketplace. The online marketplace deducts its fee and sends the rest to the coder. If the coder lives in a country where jobs are hard to find or where salaries are low, they have the potential benefit of earning US dollars. Perhaps the best thing about earning money in this manner is that they do not have to leave their country or even the comfort of their own home. The buyer benefits as well. They are able to get the job done in a professional manner at a relatively low cost. With this kind of win-win situation, it's no surprise why the online outsourcing industry has become a flourishing business. And with the presence of escrow services on many of these websites, the element of fraud is taken out of the equation and coders are assured of collecting their fees. Such is the beauty of online freelancing. Subcontracting. With the success of the freelancing business on the internet, a new type of business opportunity has risen for the more enterprising coders. It's called subcontracting. That means getting freelance jobs on the internet and subcontracting them to other coders at a profit. Subcontracting is ideal for coders who are not just technical people, but who have a keen business sense as well. These are people who can immediately gauge which projects can easily be subcontracted out but still bear them a profit. To succeed here, you have to be a skilled communicator with good people skills. You also have to be an expert in the type of work which you are subcontracting. Do you think you may have the skills necessary to contract out these kinds of jobs? There are 3 basic elements that you, as a coder, must know in order to subcontract out jobs effectively. 1. Technical skills. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need to have the technical skills to do any job that you accept, even if, and especially if you subcontract that job. You should not only be well versed, but an expert in your chosen field of endeavour. You have to be able to verify the quality of the work and be able to do it yourself if something happens and your subcontractor can't finish the job. A. Quality control. You have to make sure that the work you receive from subcontractors is the kind of quality that the buyer will accept. Ideally, the quality should be better than the buyer's lowest accepted standard. You cannot get paid on a regular basis if the quality of work your subcontractor coder submits is below standard. While most buyers will understand missing the deadline by a few hours or a day, virtually none of them will tolerate poor quality. Yes, sometimes they are paying rock-bottom rates based on the business standards of developed nations, but it is still a professional transaction between buyers and coders, and as such, they expect professional work. If the job you are subcontracting involves writing, you need to be a good writer too. You will need to have impeccable grammar and the ability to communicate clearly. In addition, you will also need to know how to edit for clarity and brevity. You will have to possess the talent needed to improve the subcontractor's work so that it is worth more in the eyes of your buyers. B. Pick up the slack. There will be occasions, and hopefully not many of them, when one of your coders will be unable to complete a job that has been awarded to you from a buyer. Or you may have landed a job and can't find any qualified coder to subcontract it to. Given the short notice and the difficulty of finding a good coder, you may have to roll up your sleeves and do the job yourself. It pays to have the talent and technical skills to do so. Beyond the ability to add to the number of articles and words required, you may also have to redo the writing in terms of the quality required. Let's say one of your coders has impeccable grammar, but a style that is dry and long-winded. That may not be what the buyer expects, and you, as the main contact, will have to do something to fix that. If you have an elegant sense of style and a way of making words come to life, then you have the skills to put an extra dash of flavour into the work. In the minds of many, talent is the most important benefit that an online entrepreneur must have if they're going to be successful using subcontractors. 2. Get into a freelancer network. To subcontract jobs, you will naturally need to have access to skilled freelancers. The key word here is skilled. It is easy enough to bring together a group of online workers who have technical knowledge in a given area, but are their skills adequate in the world market? Once again, having an eye for talent comes into play. The good news is that it is easy to find skilled freelancers. Freelancers who hire subcontractors can often find freelancer support from the same place where they landed the job online in the first place. These freelancers, originally providers of services, switch profiles to become buyers of services. They look for freelancers who have the same skills they do, except that these freelancers are willing to work for less. Two good sources of this kind of skilled freelancer can be found at Vworker.com and elance.com, which were profiled earlier. In addition, the internet is not the only place to find your skilled freelancers either. Perhaps all you may have to do is to take a good look around you. For example, there is a skilled journalist from Manila in the Philippines who has been a successful freelancer for years. He recently started outsourcing some of the jobs he has landed online and has been rather successful at it. Since he works in a newspaper, he simply passes on some of the work to his colleagues in the press. Since his colleagues are all professional writers who have established their own credibility, he has no problem delivering quality work or meeting deadlines. However, this kind of approach will not work for everyone. Perhaps the biggest reason why he succeeds is the low wages even highly skilled professionals receive in the Philippines. Today, through subcontracting jobs instead of doing them himself, he has been able to increase his monthly income threefold. 3. It's all about business sense. Getting the jobs and subcontracting them to other freelancers is a profitable endeavour, but one that's not explicitly simple. The only way to become a truly successful entrepreneur, however, is to have a good sense of business. In subcontracting, you basically become the third party, in that you act as a middleman or woman between the client and the worker. It's a little complicated because you communicate with the initial buyer and the primary seller, but you yourself are also a buyer and seller. A simple way to think of it is to take the other seller out of the picture. You and the buyer have a client-seller relationship, and you happen to be outsourcing your work. End of story. The trick here is that the profits you make from the client's purchase must exceed the cost of your outsourced work. So, like in any market, you must sell your services high and buy the outsourcer's services low. Do you think you have the key qualities necessary to succeed in outsourcing work to subcontractors? If you think you do, why not try it? The following are a few key considerations that will help you successfully launch your new career. A. Carefully and clearly define the scope of the project. The first thing you should do before accepting a single project is carefully consider your skills and talents. Ask yourself, what can I do that is easily marketable? Determine the areas that you are most confident about in your work and decide if you have the skills necessary to differentiate between subpar work and excellent work. Assess yourself with as little bias as possible and be honest with yourself. The one thing you usually don't want to do is try and do 100 different things at once. Have you ever heard the phrase, "Jack of all trades, master of none"? That last little part is what will get you. Clients hire freelancers with a specific skill set because they want the person who is the absolute best at that one thing. Expanding your niche in too many directions won't nab you any extra clients if you don't appeal as an authority in your field. It might be a way to make a few extra bucks in the short term, but it's a surefire way of ruining your reputation in the long run. Just imagine what it would mean to your reputation if your outsourced freelancers were submitting inferior work to you and you did not know how to tell the difference. You might get away with submitting this kind of work to buyers, and they may not raise a howl given that the work meets their bare minimum, but more than likely they will never use your services again. Sooner or later, word will spread about your penchant for delivering inferior products, and no one may want to hire you. Defining your scope of work is also practical because it allows you to concentrate your efforts in that area alone. This will dramatically increase your efficiency and allow you to gain a reputation much faster. In business school, professors teach students to avoid working on several small business projects at the same time, because chances are a small business project will take almost as much effort and time to become profitable as a large one. Instead, students are counselled to take on the largest project available and focus their energies on that alone. Hopefully, you can do the same. B. Carefully choose your projects. Any experienced online entrepreneur should understand and know how to gauge his or her profit margin. It's essential to accurately assess how much you need to bid to land a project and how much it will cost to bid it out. Before you begin to bid for a project, you should have an idea of how much you will potentially earn from it. Those valuations should become second nature to you. You know that Project X costs $200 and Project Y costs $300. And you know you can find subcontractors who can finish the work for $100 and $150 respectively. Aside from the quality of the project, you also have to understand the importance of meeting the deadline. The best jobs for this kind of setup are naturally those which have the longest deadlines. It is important to be able to estimate how long the job will actually take. When it comes to meeting deadlines, one way to manage your timetable effectively is to divide the large jobs and farm them out to several coders. Let's say you've been awarded a writing job to write an ebook on childcare with 10 chapters for $2,000 over a 45-day period of time. Bid out each chapter separately among 10 coders and allocate, say, $100 for each chapter over a 25-day period. This way you don't have to worry about the deadline because you've given yourself a 20-day buffer and you stand to earn $1,000 for your efforts. If you are going to handle a project in this manner, you must be able to rewrite the articles you receive in order to make sure the entire book flows seamlessly and that the same style and tone of voice is consistent throughout. C. Cultivate a strong talent pool. In many cases, this is the most important asset needed when subcontracting work to others. Here are a few additional tips to help you out in this regard. Know how to hire a good coder. There are 4 things you should look at when hiring a coder: their resume, their samples, their rating, and their client testimonials. The last 2 are critical because it is easy to prepare a bogus resume and samples, especially on the internet. If you look at those 4 things and feel you have found the person you are looking for, hire them. Know how to keep them happy. A happy coder always delivers better work than an unhappy one, given the same skill level. You keep your coders happy by dealing in a polite and professional manner, paying them on time, and understanding them when they fall or falter, and believe me, they will miss a deadline now and then. Give them respect and they will give you their best. 4. Take care of your clients. Here is the main reason why quality counts. It is quality, more than anything else, that will make your customers come running back to you again and again. Always put a premium on quality. First-class work is sometimes hard to find, especially given a limited budget. If you consistently deliver first-class work, you assure yourself and your coders of a prosperous business well into the future. There is a popular saying in sales which says that it is 8 times easier to get new business from your current clients than it is from cold calls. In other words, make sure you ask your clients for referrals from people they know or work with who may need the service you provide. Some coders hesitate when it comes to asking for referrals because they feel it is unprofessional. They feel asking for referrals is like asking for a favour. That is not really the case. If you have faith in your ability to deliver good work, you are actually helping your client because of your willingness to provide quality work to their friends or business associates. That will reflect well on them too. It's a two-way street. Now that we have looked at 3 online venues, we are ready to look at developing eye-catching resumes that will help you land some of those great paying opportunities. Freelancing websites. Vworker, aka Rent-A-Coder. Vworker, formerly known as Rent-A-Coder, is a place where software buyers and software coders meet to do business. Doing business in Vworker is extremely simple. Clients, aka buyers, post their requirements on the site, and coders, aka programmers and writers, make a bid for these requirements. The buyer hires the coder who they feel is best qualified and pays them when the job is completed. Pretty easy, right? Vworker is pretty much an online market where companies and individuals with programming and coding needs find qualified programmers to write code for them. It provides excellent opportunities for software programmers and freelance writers to put their hard-earned skills to use and earn cash. One of the marvellous things about this site is that writers can actually find work and get paid without ever leaving the comfort of their home. And with Vworker's Safe Project Escrow, see below, coders can work on projects without the stress of worrying about the agreed-on payment time. Who are the people on Vworker? Vworker has a vast international community of buyers and coders spanning virtually every continent in the world. They have over 64,700 buyers registered on the site, as well as a pool of over 159,000 registered coders. At any given time, Vworker has over 2,000 open bid requests awaiting qualified coders. There is a world of opportunities available through Vworker. Vworker was founded and is owned by Ian Ippolito. He is the Chief Executive Officer and holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Central Florida. The offices are located in Tampa, Florida, USA. What are the profit possibilities? Fees vary depending on the nature and scope of the particular project. The smaller jobs can cost $20 or less, while the larger jobs can pay you thousands of dollars. The sky is the limit in Vworker. You get paid according to your skill level and your capacity and readiness to work hard and deliver the goods on time. What is the method of payment? One of the best things about Vworker is that they take care of the money side of your business transactions with buyers. They have a marvellous instrument called Safe Project Escrow, which assures coders that they will be paid. Here's how it works. Let's say a buyer selects your bid from the dozens of bids received. After approving your bid, the buyer puts the agreed-upon amount in escrow, meaning the funds are automatically forwarded to the Vworker website. Once your work is complete and the buyer approves and accepts it, the funds are released to you. Your accumulated earnings on Vworker can be released to you on the 15th of each month, at the end of the month, or both times. Payment is usually sent a few days, 2 or 3, after your selected payment period. There are 3 payment options on Vworker: snail mail check, Western Union, and PayPal. If you're doing a large job that's over $100 to $200 per pay period, then I suggest the first 2 options, and here's why. PayPal can and will hold your money for up to 6 months, and more often than not, they won't even provide you with a reason. PayPal is extremely convenient and safe. That's why millions of people use it today. That being said, PayPal is infamous for holding funds for up to 6 months at the slightest sign of a breaching contract. Even if PayPal is mistaken, that will hold your money and will not provide you with any restitution for having to wait 6 months for it. In order for the website to be maintained, Vworker charges a 15% fee on a coder's income. This is automatically deducted before payment is sent to the coder. This 15% can actually be reduced depending on the auction type, see below, and the payment methods that the coder and buyer agree upon. How do I get jobs? There are 2 basic ways to get jobs at Vworker. By winning bid requests. Once a bid request is placed on the site, virtually anyone can make a bid on that particular project. From the dozen or so bids received, the buyer selects one and that winning bidder gets the job. Private auctions. These are auctions where you are invited to participate, as opposed to the first one where you make a bid on a project that is open to all. In private auctions, you either have a satisfied customer who asks you to do a new job, or a new customer who is impressed with your rating and decides to invite you to bid on their job. 6. How can I improve my chances of getting future work? Focus on your resume. When you sign up to Vworker, there is a portion in the sign-up procedure that asks for your resume. Unfortunately, a lot of newcomers do not give enough attention to their resume. This is a major mistake. At the beginning, and with no track record on the site whatsoever, your resume is one of the few things that buyers can study to assess your capability to do their job. For this reason, it is of paramount importance that you are able to present yourself competently on your resume. When writing your resume, you should remember to be clear and concise. After all, you are a writer, and clarity and brevity should be 2 of your strongest points. Don't simply put down a laundry list of past positions and tasks that you have handled in your career. Give brief descriptions to each of them, particularly about the writing aspect of that particular job. If your resume is too long, chances are it may turn off prospective buyers and limit your chances of landing jobs. The best advice is to include only your past professional experiences that relate to the current position you are seeking in Vworker. Intrigue with a creative bid letter. Every time you make a bid for a project, you will have to write a bid letter. Make sure the first line in the bid letter catches the attention of the buyer. Make it lucrative and interesting. If you are a writer, you already know this is called the hook. It is what can make the difference between a buyer paying attention to you or just passing you by as ordinary. It is an ideal opportunity to show off your skills as a writer. Your letter should tell the buyer one important thing: why you are an excellent candidate, if not the best person, for this particular job. Remember, the ideal bid letter should discuss your experience and expertise. It should contain references to past jobs or writing assignments that are related to the job you are bidding for. If there is nothing in your work history that is related to the current job, then emphasize your ability to handle a wide array of different subjects and your capacity to learn fast. Another thing that buyers look for is speed and efficiency. Let the buyer know that you can tackle their particular job efficiently and quickly. Give them a firm commitment about meeting the deadline and assure them that you will be communicating with them regularly in the course of the job, if only to give them updates. Only send your best work. Although not every buyer requires coders to send samples when they bid for a project, it is always best to send them samples anyway. Your samples will give buyers an idea of how you write and whether your particular style fits their project. For this reason, it is best to provide samples that have the same subject matter or are at least related to the subject matter of the job you are bidding on. This way, you not only exhibit your writing style, but impress upon the buyer your familiarity with the subject. This is always a major plus. However, if you have no related previous work, it does not have to mean you will be overlooked for the job. Send your best samples and you may have chance of landing that job anyway. Start slowly and build up. The most difficult time to get jobs on Vworker is at the beginning when you are new to the site. That is because you are an unknown entity with no track record on Vworker whatsoever. You may have a glowing resume and impressive samples, but many coders want to know how you work given the parameters and conditions of Vworker. For this reason, your first priority should be getting a few jobs under your belt. Don't disregard the small projects, small pay, small deliverables, etc. You may also bid for the major projects, but as a newbie, your chances of getting the smaller jobs are better. Initially, your objective will be to establish a track record. Start with some simple projects that you can do easily. Don't make the size of the payment a priority. In fact, you will be much better off if you don't pay any attention to the payment at all. Once you have a number of projects under your belt, and potential buyers will take note of that, they are more likely to regard you favourably because you have a history of delivering the goods. Of course, if you are a very talented writer with outstanding credentials and excellent samples, then by all means go for the higher paying jobs. There are always exceptions to the rule. Keep an eye on quality. In every job you do, always give the buyer your best work. There are two reasons for this. First, you make the buyer happy and increase the likelihood that they will use you again for future projects. Second, the buyer will give you a good rating after completing the job. On Vworker, a coder's rating is one of the main factors that buyers consider when handing out jobs. Quality work ensures a satisfied customer, and satisfied customers give coders perfect 10 ratings. That is the highest rating you can get on Vworker. If you can establish a string of a dozen or so consecutive 10 ratings, then you're sending a clear signal to all potential customers that you can do an excellent job for them. This will greatly enhance your ability to get more jobs. Build up your reputation. Aside from ratings, buyers also post comments on their coders' work after they have completed the job. These comments are another thing that buyers look at, since they convey much more than what a numerical rating can say. For instance, getting a 10 rating will tell the prospective clients that you have satisfied your previous customers, but the comments portion is where they will learn about your professionalism, attitude, and working style. Comments are usually short one-liners that summarize a coder's performance. They may say things like, "It was a pleasure to work with a real pro like him," or "She delivered on all her promises and provided excellent results." These are the kinds of comments that can weigh heavily on a buyer's decision-making process when looking for the right coder for the job. Be adaptable. Since the projects on Vworker run the gamut of practically any subject imaginable, it always pays to exhibit versatility to prospective buyers. Show them you can successfully write about a wide range of topics and that you can adapt different writing styles, be it serious, humorous, or provocative. Among the most popular topics for writers on Vworker are travel, health, real estate, relationships, romance, technology, the internet, and similar subjects. It pays to have some knowledge about these subjects tucked under your belt. Take deadlines seriously. Most of the buyers on Vworker have deadlines, and they expect the coders they hire to deliver the work within the agreed-on deadline. This is a basic requirement for any professional writer. Deadlines have to be regarded as almost sacred. No one wants to hire an undependable writer. If you want to be regarded as a professional and paid like a professional, you have to act like a professional, and meeting your deadlines is part of that package. Update clients on a regular basis. In line with being a professional, freelance writers must also give their clients regular updates about how the work is progressing. Buyers will always want to know where their project stands. Most of the time, they just need to know that the writing is going smoothly and that you, the writer, will have no trouble meeting the deadline. However, they also want to know about any problems you may encounter, especially if these problems will hamper you from meeting the deadline or delivering quality work. Thankfully, in Vworker, there is a built-in mechanism that reminds coders that they haven't given an update in 3 days. Once you receive that notice, you know it is time to give your buyer an update. In addition, for major projects spanning weeks of work and costing hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, coders are required to give the buyer an update every Friday. Vworker moderators can penalise the coder if they fail to do so. This will definitely affect their overall rating. Don't be stubborn. Let's say you've just completed a batch of 20 difficult articles and have barely beaten the week-long deadline set by your buyer. You heave a sigh of relief and thank your lucky stars that the work is finished. That, however, is not the case. The work is not officially finished until the buyer formally accepts it. If the buyer is unhappy with the work, they have every right to request that you make revisions, as long as these are reasonable, and you are obliged to comply. Unfortunately, many writers resist making revisions by insisting they have met every requirement stated in the buyer's original bid. They may be right, and they may even convince the buyer that they are right. But if the buyer is forced to accept the work, the coder may suffer the consequences of refusing to respect the buyer's request for a revision. The buyer may punish the coder by giving them a poor rating or by posting unflattering, nasty comments that will certainly affect the coder's future prospects of getting jobs with other buyers. Honesty really is the best policy. As a professional writer, never assume to know what the buyer wants if you are unsure about it. If you are not clear about something, ask. Don't go ahead and write about something if you are not absolutely sure about what your buyer expects. If you do and you're wrong, the buyer may ask you to rewrite the project all over again. This is something that all writers absolutely hate to do, correct? Hence, make it a rule to never assume. Buyers won't mind if you ask them a lot of questions, as long as these questions can help you deliver the kind of high-quality work that they demand. Make suggestions. Most clients will appreciate some suggestions here and there. This lets them know that you're taking their project seriously and paying attention to your work. It's also good to try and put out the best work possible if you're going to use anything as examples for your resume and portfolio. Clients don't always make the best decisions, so trying to make them lean towards more sensible ones usually doesn't hurt. Go above and beyond. This is a general rule for success in virtually every human endeavour. Go the extra mile and deliver more than what is expected. This does not mean writing more articles than the buyer wants. What it does mean is proofreading your work and putting in the extra time it takes to make necessary revisions. Do everything you can to ensure that the work you submit is impeccable and represents your best work.